Hey, Sequel Sucks fans, can you do me a big favour, please? Angus and myself would really love if you could like the podcast, subscribe to it would be even better, and then, especially if you are keeping tabs on what we're doing, and we are doing stuff more frequently, yay, can you hit that little bell button and that'll give you notifications to let you know when new content has dropped on YouTube. All that stuff is greatly appreciated by both of us and also the guests that we have on the show. We've got some exciting stuff coming up, and look, there's a lot of sequels getting churned out at the moment, and there's some old sequels we still want to get back to, but we really appreciate the support.
By definition alone, they're inferior films. Films. Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Sequels suck.
Welcome back, movie fans. This is a podcast, Sequels Suck, and today we have another movie that's pretty much dropped in the last week from a massive franchise, a sci-fi slash horror franchise. And it's going to be interesting because me and Angus have not talked about this film. And unlike many of the other films we've talked on this podcast before that we have a lot of nostalgia for, or we've watched many a time, and we've had a long time to sit on those movies and think about them a lot. This is one sort of fresh off from Twisters and Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's Alien Romulus. And we have not discussed, so I'm really actually quite pumped to talk to you about this movie because I feel like it's already fairly divisive. I feel like there's a lot of positive reports from a lot of people, but I still feel like there's some people that are pretty down on this film as well, I should say. But I have no idea what you're going to say, so this is exciting. And yeah, let's get into it. What are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts?
Everyone I've spoken to about this film while I was waiting for us to record either loves it or is meh. No one hates it that I've spoken to. It's like it's amazing, it's so good, Aliens is back, or they're like, I sort of more, not quite all the way, but I'm in this middle ground where there are parts of this movie that I really like, but there's a lot of stuff in there. And I think we spoke about this as well with some other recent releases where I think we may have even talked about in Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, it's got all the bits, it's got all the parts, but you walk out and it's like, I feel a bit empty. And I've thought about this a lot since I walked out of the cinema because there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie that I don't think you can overcome. So bring it right back to the start. For anyone who is listening and hasn't watched the movie, I don't know why, but this is a sequel in a fashion that I personally enjoy, where they have slotted it in. They have slotted it in between Alien and Aliens. So that's not a retcon. They're not ignoring every other movie. They're not ignoring it for a hell of a long time. Some other shit went down. And that's when this takes place. So right out of the gate, love that decision. Love the title. It's like, good. Alien Romulus, great. Get back in that rhythm. We've got Alien Covenant. We've got Alien Resurrection. We've got, we've got some names going on our title. All good. This movie got me in a weird headspace from the get-go because it does two things at the start, two very different things at the start that aren't connected, but that I couldn't quite get over. The first one is we have our alien from the original Alien film just floating around in space, ready to be caught. Now, I don't know how you felt about this, Cable, but I have some questions about how the alien was able to coat itself in what looked like a cocoon in the void of space that has no gravity. Like in fact, this movie goes to great lengths to bring up gravity all
Yes.
the time, to the point where there is a huge set piece that is all about gravity and about how if liquid is floating when there's no gravity. So the alien from the original Alien film supposedly has coated itself in some sort of a cocoon protective thing, and then is picked up by Weyland-Yutani, just floating out in the endless. Now, it's a movie about aliens, so I get there's a suspension of disbelief you need to come in with. And I just rewatched Alien Resurrection. This is the first time in an Alien movie where I felt like the people behind the scenes are kind of like, they're dumb. They won't notice. They won't think of that. They're too dumb to think of that, because this franchise has never been dumb. It's been, I mean, if you exclude the AVP movies, but the actual Alien movies, they've never been dumb. In fact, Prometheus and Covenant went out of their way to be incredibly highbrow to mixed results, I think. But this one, that opening, it irked me out of the gate. I don't know if anyone else even cared. I haven't heard anyone else bring it up, but it irked me. I was like, how is that happening? You're expecting us to not even ask how that's, yes, the alien is the perfect specimen, but it can't beat gravity. So if it's spewing out this cocoon, where's the cocoon? Like, anything it does is just going to float off into space.
Yeah.
Also, the cocoon is black and it's floating around in the inky blackness of space, and still they're able to find it. A being that they have absolutely no way to find. Like, they have no samples of it. They have no idea what it really. That's why it's so important in the original Alien film that they get it and bring it back. Like, they have no concept of what this thing is, no way to track it. It's this totally new, unfound species. I know I'm going on about this too long, but it really irked me. Did that bother you at all out of the gate, how they set up this film existing?
Probably not as much as you, but definitely fractionally. I think it was a smart way to go.
It just shit me, man.
No, well, I hear what you're saying. It's one of those things that's like, can we be that hypocritical if they show us something a little bit different? When sometimes we do talk about films, but they keep rehashing the same stuff and they don't have any original ideas. This is obviously a very original idea, and like you said, I love where they placed it in the timeline, because it doesn't necessarily have to retcon anything. It doesn't have to really impact something, and it actually works very well off a lot of the stuff that we see set up in Prometheus and Covenant. But I agree with you. I was confused at first, because I'm like, okay, they're going back, and I'm like, well, when is this? So that was the other thing, which I've only seen in subsequent videos. This is about 20 years later. So they've finally found the wreckage of the Nostromo, and they've found this, obviously, like you said, cocoon of the alien. That's a significant amount of time after the fact. And I sort of was thinking, that's a lot of money and time spent looking for something that, again, is a massive long shot. And you kind of do think, plot-wise, couldn't they just go to LV 223, or was it 423?
Well, no, because they haven't gone to LV 246 yet, because this becomes before.
No, but Nostromo's been there, so they should sort of know some information. That's why I'm sometimes a bit sketchy on
the same planet.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, you're right. It's the same planet.
Yeah, so I'm sort of I was a bit sketchy in that, because you think Ash would have been relaying a lot of information back to Weyland. Anyway, so yeah, look, they obviously don't want this for their bioweapons division. It's very important to them. I get it. I thought it was interesting because, like you said, it comes in, it looks like a giant asteroid sort of rock formation. It doesn't even look like a cocoon until, you might see it on a different angle. They bring it in, and yes, I thought, is this the alien? Like, again, it was not, they don't make it explicitly obvious. Unless I guess if you're a fan, you probably suspect you know what it is. But look, maybe now that you say it, maybe more that I think about it, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch. Like you said, and they're looking for a black rock like you said, in the darkness of space. And it just happens to still be around the Nostromo, and when that exploded, like the blast rate, I don't know. Anyway, maybe we just move on from that point. But
it's the first time in any Alien movie that it felt like they were like, you're dumb. But yeah, it's not a big thing, but it was a bad start for me. The second thing they did that really like set me on an uneven footing, and I never quite got off it. The way that they jump things off on the planet with Rain and Andy. Now, I quite like the way. In fact, that's something I should say right off the top. This movie looks like you could touch it. Like the art department has done an incredible job. The sets, the costumes, the vehicles, everything that's going on. It's real. It looks like it's there, and you could touch it, and you can feel it. Like, it's gritty and it's grimy, and it feels very much like the Alien and Aliens films. And Alien 3. That's a pretty gritty, grimy film. The problem I have with the way that we jump off is that we are introduced to Andy and Rain, whose name I will just say right now, I had to Google after the movie because I never heard anyone clearly say it through the whole film because no one can enunciate in this movie and no one speaks at a volume you can hear.
Oh, well, that's my nitpick.
Anyone except for Andy, not a single other character in this movie speaks clearly.
Yeah.
So the problem I have it with is that we start off with this character who's on this world, and we quickly, very very quickly, devolve into what I felt was just a YA novel. This is more Twilight or The Maze Runner or something like that than it is Alien. There's a bunch of kids who are being put down. It's the Hunger Games. Oh, the evil government is killing our parents, and we're going to rise up as the future. And we're going to go to this new Eden together, and we're going to fight back against them, and we just have to get this thing. And I genuinely was like, is this the new Hunger Games movie? What the fuck is going on?
Do you know what?
These children who are fighting against this evil, and the way they made. Anyway, yeah.
No, I was going to say that I actually got. You know what vibes I got with. Like that setting and the whole feeling like they're trapped as part. The corporation owns them. They're just they're effectively slaves, and they have to pay their way off. You know what it actually made me think of? Another spin-off movie, Solo. The start of that when he's on the planet and they've got to get away and it's to have a better life. It was very, very reminiscent of that. But I agree with you totally about it was great to feel like I was in an environment where I felt like I could be there. Like you said, I could touch and feel. Obviously, there's CGI in this film, but I never felt like I was looking at CGI. Even when they're later on when we see them in the Romulus and even the rings, when it gets close to the rings, it feels like there's a texture to it. Like it doesn't feel like it looks like they're going to hit pavement in a second or something. It just felt very, like I said, gritty. It felt like a lived-in world, which they knocked that out of the park 100%. But coming back to your point about the sound.
There's one moment where I felt like I was looking at CGI, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head with the sound. I hated the sound. And when I say hated, I agree with you. I saw it in VMAX, so it's nice, loud. It was loud, punchy, all the sounds that you would want to hear in an alien film. But the dialogue was almost incoherent at times. Like you said, it's whether they just didn't have the volumes.
It was mumblecore.
Right.
You couldn't understand anyone.
No,
every single person I've spoken to said the same thing. Like I went and saw it in an independent cinema, the Sun Theatre in their Grand, which has got incredible sound. I've seen so many great films there. It's not the cinema's fault that people can't hear. Made to be incoherent, I think, and the accents that the characters have do not help.
No.
But honestly, you can't understand what they're saying. And the first notes that I had when I walked out of the cinema was, cannot understand anyone. The second note I had is, what the fuck is going on? It's way too dark. Because as soon as we kind of get to, not even off the planet, as soon as we get to the ship before it leaves and we meet the motley crew of people who are going to fight against the government, the lighting switches and it becomes weird camera angles with weird lighting, and you can't see what the hell is going on. It only gets worse when you get to the ship. And it's almost as if they thought, well, until we power up the ship that's going, we have to turn the lights off. And it's really dark. So there was probably a good 20 minutes, and I can't see anything. I hope this changes, because what the fuck is this movie actually doing? That was really, really upsetting. All of that is very negative, and part of it is a bit nitpicky. Once we get off the planet, which I was glad to be done with, I would get away from planets. I don't want an alien movie that spends too much time on a planet unless we're in a confined space. These movies don't work in open spaces, I don't think. So it's not interesting to see them just wandering around. And you're right, it did feel a bit Star Wars-y. I'm like, we don't need this. This is not what these movies are. Once we get on the Romulus Remus space station, they got me back on board. I was back in the game, and I was like, okay, cool, here we go. Let's go. We're in the movie now. And there are some really thrilling moments, and all of which I'll talk about. But everything I'm going to talk about is going to be covered by this one insurmountable thing. Apart from Andy, the android, I did not know the names of, nor did I care about a single character, because there is 0 minutes dedicated to character development in this movie. There is 0 dialogue given to make any of these characters memorable, and there is 0 energy put in to any of these characters being worth a damn for the audience when they're put in peril. Not only did I not care when they started to die, I was like, fucking finally, we can get rid of these pointless characters and actually hopefully get to the plot. But then I realized very quickly, oh, we've got, what was it, 8 characters in this entire movie?
Yeah.
4 of them die almost immediately, and 2 of them have character armor. You know that they're not going to die. So I realized, oh, we're not going to get, like, there's no tension because I don't care if they die. They're also killing them off quite quickly. So we're going to be down to 2 characters really, really quickly that we know can't die. And that's going to be the rest of the movie. And Alien is like the ultimate character movie. You got Harry Dean Stanton, you got Yaphet Kotto, you got Ian Holm, you got all these incredible actors coming in who have that. There's that brilliant scene at the start of Alien when they wake up, and it's like I've heard someone describe it as Robert Altman-esque because they're all just talking over each other at the breakfast table. And it's just, you're not meant to really care about any of the dialogue. You're just meeting the characters. But by the end of that scene, where they're all having breakfast and talking, you know who each of them is, and you give a shit about who each of them is. So when they start to get picked off, every time you're like, no, not, oh, come on, not him. He's the best. What are you doing? Same in Aliens. We get all those characters waking up from cryosleep, giving each other shit, doing chin-ups, you know. Have you ever man, have you? That's all I need to know. Now I know by the time they actually get the mission briefing, you know who the squad is, and you are very afraid that they're going to die. Right? Even Alien 3 kind of does it. We're like, you don't know a bunch of the prisoners, but once the generic ones get killed off and you have your few remainders, you're like, fuck, they killed that one. Alien Prometheus, like every single one of them, you can go on. But this one, no. Did you know the names of or care about any of these characters as the movie was happening?
No, I did, but it took me a while. Like there was, like they kept saying Navarro. Now I would never have associated Navarro with the Asian chick. That's who I am. Like I just thought Navarro sounds more like a male name, and you don't want to necessarily put a gender label on the names all the time. But it is if you heard Navarro, I would assume that was the more male, masculine character. I'm sorry, and it was like, right, there was Andy and Rain, and then I felt like all the other characters.
I wouldn't care about that. I just never heard the name.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna throw a name at you. You tell me if this is the name of one of the characters. Benny.
No.
Is that the name of one of the characters?
No, I don't think so. That's from The Mummy.
You don't know. Bjorn. Is that the name of one of the characters? Yes, there's a character called Bjorn in this movie.
No,
Bjorn is definitely a character in this movie. He's the asshole cousin who keeps giving shit to Andy. His name is Bjorn.
Well, see, that's weird too. It's like, his accent. I'm like, what's the go there? It's
just so, that made it really difficult for me to fully get on board. So I realized very quickly, okay, what I'm here for is cool kills, and I'm here for 10 sequences of the aliens. So it's kind of, I tried to flip my thinking halfway through and be like, am I watching a generic slasher? And I think for the middle part, that's kind of what it's trying to emulate. It's trying to be a generic slasher in the world of Alien, which I guess we haven't fully seen. You know, the first Alien movie isn't quite a slasher. It's more its own beast. Aliens is certainly its own beast. It's a thing. So I guess this list pretty teens that you don't really need to care about. You're just there to see them die in interesting ways. And then there'll be a final girl, and then there'll be a final battle, and then the end. So once I flicked my thinking to that, I was like, okay, cool. But even then, the kills, they felt muted. I feel like this is a movie that producers watched a cut and gone, whoa, 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 whoa. That's a bit much. Tone it down. For example, dripping on him bit by bit.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest kills in the movie.
Yeah, 100%.
when the alien's above him, the acid's dripping, and he's like slowly like that is amazing. But then just as it starts to get a bit gross and intense, he just dies. Like he literally just goes. "Bah."
Yeah, they like cut
Like
to
I felt like his death felt like the director and the writer and the creative team had a really great idea, and then it got the edge just got sanded off a bit. So if it's a slasher movie, we're here for the kills. We didn't quite get that either. So I'm left a bit.
But I
I don't
wonder
know
if that's. Do you think that's a Disney influence?
what it is that I'm watching. Look, maybe it is a part of the Disney universe now, but it is also it's an R-rated movie, and they promoted it as like a scary thriller, and scary thrillers are making money at the moment. People are on board for grown-up movies.
Yeah.
So I don't know what or how or where the studio influence came.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I'm confused is with the advertising, and I think we've started to get on that rant, or at least I have now, because for a long time I love trailers. I used to love trailers, but now I'm getting to the point. It's like, oh my god, they show you way too much in a trailer. Like it's like they're the worst edited, cut together things on the planet. I could do a million times better with some trailers, but they want to show the big bad at the end, or they want to show a death scene. Like, why? Give away the shock value of something. But yeah, the Romulus trailer actually has the Asian character Navarro having I can't remember if you see the face hugger on her face or not, but you see her chest burst, and you go, well, I know she's getting a chest burst.
Yeah.
So that element of surprise is totally gone, and that would have been cool because
Which is a shame because that is a cool kill.
yeah. So it's things like that, and I'm pretty sure that is supposed to be her on the poster, the main poster with got the red background and the face hugger.
Her, yeah.
It is her, so it's kind of like, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean in the movie that's going to happen to her. I get that, but I mean, they've gone with her, and it's like, I don't know. It would have been cool if they just used Kaylee Spaney as just the mock dummy for that, or the promotion stuff for the film, just to throw you off a little bit, or just say, well, anyone's on the cards to get the face hugger. So anyway, yeah, and like you said, like unfortunately, there's not enough that you care about these characters. Like we get to know Kaylee a bit, who plays Rain, and you kind of know she's.
But even then, do we what do we know about her? We know her parents are dead. We know that she called the android her brother, and we know she used to date the guy who's kind of the head of the pirates. I'll call him for the thing. Like, what else do we know?
Yeah, well, you're right. Like, we don't know a lot, but I think
a child.
Well, I think that the fact that the movie starts on her, it does feel like it's her story or follows her story. That you kind of know there's a good chance she's surviving for a sequel if they want one. And then whether Andy survives is another one, or does he go off the cliff? Which I did like that idea of him having the chip and he's being sort of, I guess, reprogrammed by the company. That was one of the positives I really liked that they did. And it was cool to actually see, like, because we've seen these androids before, and the way we know they're androids is they start to bleed, and it's just like that milky consistency. It's not real blood, and then they might get beaten up or split in half or whatever it is. But this was the first time we actually saw the actual, like, little, I guess, USB/ port come out, and I thought that was a really cool touch, that he was able to do some things in the space station, but not all, because he doesn't have the power to do so. But then, we'll get that one out of Ash, and we'll put that in you, and you'll be able to get clearance. And I thought that was a cool idea. Which, now that we touched on that, do you want to say something before we go to Ash?
Well, I was going to say, you talk.
You're breaking up on me.
Well, I was just the Andy character, before we move on to the other character. Oh, you're frozen. Can you hear me? I'm just dancing.
I can hear you, and you're moving.
I just see you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go. Continue.
Okay, cool. The Andy character for me steals the movie. I think he's great. I think the actor playing him is great. I like that. Like, we're gonna have a busted up sort of shit android, because I mean I've heard some people complain about like, stupid Android like making dad jokes and stuff. Like, no, this is really good because it reminds us that he's just a computer that someone programmed, and the dad who found him programmed him to be like a friend and protector for his daughter. So of course he's going to program his stupid jokes. I love that. It's one of the best things in the movie for me.
Yeah.
And I love that, yeah, he's glitchy as shit because the dad's dead and Rain doesn't know how to fix a freaking Android. And Weyland-Yutani isn't going to fix an old model. So, yes, he's shitty. And then he gets the disc from, you said Ash. I'll correct you there. Not Ash, Rook.
Well,
he gets
yes.
the disc from Rook. But Rook is an android. And this is the thing that I'm interested to hear your perspective. So Rook is a synthetic person that looks exactly the same as Ash, for all intents and purposes, played by Ian Holm, the same actor who played Ash in the original Alien. The only problem with that is that Ian Holm died in 2022, and in no way, shape, or form had anything to do with this film. Some people have been like, oh, yeah, it was his last performance, or, oh, he recorded the audio. No. He did not record anything. They built an animatronic, which was incredibly good. Then they got another actor to do the face work, and then they AI'd Ian Holmes' face on. And then they used an AI program to do Ian Holmes' voice to read. The director reached out to Ian Holmes' widow and his children and all interested parties. They all said, yes, we were happy with this. In the last 10 years of his career, Ian Holm was kind of rejected a lot by Hollywood and felt quite shunned and upset about that. And they said, if he was alive and you reached out and asked him to come back and do this, he would have been so overjoyed. So we think with that in mind, yes, it's okay. Now, all of that, fine, great. I don't know how you feel about this, Cable, but I personally am horrified at the fact that we are already AIing dead actors into movies for no reason. Like the reason that Fede Alvarez, the director, gave is, oh, well, a Bishop shows up in a couple of movies and David shows up in a couple of movies. And it just felt strange that Ash was the only one who never showed up in more than one movie, which is a massive slap in the face to Winona Ryder, who is Call in Alien Resurrection and has only been in one. But anyway, that's his reason. It could have been any, like in the script when they initially wrote it, it was just a synthetic who was destroyed. It wasn't until they were like getting ready to do it, like, oh, what if we did Ian Holm? So it wasn't meant to be, and they, in fact, they deliberately didn't call it Ash because it wasn't another Ash. It's just another droid. So, how did you feel when you saw them roll over the torso, and it was Ian Holm as Rook?
Well, when they first came in and you didn't know it was him, and I think they lift him up and then they put him back down, but you don't see it, and they go away from it, and we don't know that it's Ian Holmes' character of Ash or Rook, whatever you want to call it. It's only really, I think, blinking you miss it, but I sort of saw enough show, like, is that supposed to be Ash? And I was like, I got excited. And look, apparently there is a lot of negativity about this being the thing in the movie, and it sounds like you weren't a super fan of it. I think, one, they ticked it off with the family, and like you said, I'd heard that same thing, that he did feel a bit shunned and didn't feel well treated in the last few years of his life with Hollywood. So he 100% would have done it if he was alive, and the family gave the blessings. Look, I'm not a big fan of necessarily doing things in AI, but I thought it was a cool touch because for me, I liked that we had Andy, who was an African-American character, a bit different as an android, different model, but I liked the continuation of having Ash as part of the company or the corporation who is looking for this thing, the Xenomorph or the facehuggers, the biology. I like that continuation of having, that's their model that the company run with, and so for me, it made perfect sense. I liked it. But also I can understand your point of view and other people's point of view. I think some people were getting a bit too upset about, the family and this and that. It's like, well, it was signed off by the family, and I think Hollywood's pretty good with that stuff now because they get in a lot of trouble if they start showing people, especially if they are dead and they don't get a tick off, because someone's got to get paid. So I don't know. I liked it. I still think, unfortunately, I've seen some really negative reviews over the look of it. I think at times it does look good, but I think it's like anything, even in video games, I still think they can't. There's something about the mouth, when the inside of the mouth for me always never looks right. But it's a better job than Grand Moff Tarkin in or replicating Peter Cushing in Rogue One. So they've come a long way.
I think you're right. I think that the actual look of it, and all the reasons to have him, great. Like, I think have another one that looks like Ash. That's great. Nice little thing for in-home. It's great. It's the larger issue of AI that irks me, but that's neither here nor there in the concept of this movie. I think they first roll him over and you see him up close, the CGI is real bad. And I was like, shit. Then they make a really smart decision for the rest of the movie. And we see Ash, it's on like a video monitor, which is distorted. So you can't get that clarity by proxy, which is great. Or when they cut back to him for real, they shoot him at a distance. So you don't have to get right up close and personal. Really, really clever stuff. I like the way that they continue this model of android is a motherfucker. Like, you can't trust an Ash or a Rook. You can't trust the synthetics that look like this. I like that they have that there because it is a great plot device, because so often, some people have been describing this movie as a haunted house movie, and I like that description. You go into a spooky old place, there's obviously been some kind of chaos. What happened? Let's figure it out. And inevitably in movies like this, it happens in Aliens, and it happens in Alien Resurrection. I can't remember if it happens in Covenant, but inevitably you get in a horror film, when you're going through a spooky place and you're trying to piece together what happened, you come across the lone survivor who somehow managed to escape the carnage. They're hiding behind a box or under a bed or in a cupboard, and everyone's dead. They killed everyone. You're like, how did you survive? Right? In this scenario, well, they're an android, and they didn't actually survive. They got ripped the fuck up, and then they got plugged back in and turned back on. So I like that they kind of circumvent that silliness there. And I like that he was all messed up and still, so committed to Weyland-Yutani and being a jerk. And I like that his programming gets put into Andy, and then Andy becomes real sus real quick. And I think, again, is his name David Johnson? The actor did a great job of that's one of the few moments in the film that made me jump, is when they put the chip in and he's like, his eyes roll back and he's like, and he almost goes into this weird, like, summoning a demon pose.
Yeah,
I was
was great.
What the fuck is happening? That was cool. So that's me bitching about a few things. There's a lot of stuff that are good. The number one thing that I loved about this movie, face huggers galore. Face huggers are such a cool character that we get precious little of in an alien movie, because they're just there to impregnate someone, die, and then we get our xenomorph. Fuck that. In this movie, they're there beginning, middle, and end, and there are so many, and they are fucking cool. I love face huggers. I was like, yes, give me all the face huggers. Chaser, this is so great.
Well, like you said,
I loved the way they tried to lean to that.
Yeah, I do feel like the face huggers in alien history have been, they're fairly one-dimensional, which is, it just is what it is. But this one, like you said, we got more face huggers in quantity, we got more visually to see on screen, and they did a lot more. So we got to see them in water.
I think like the most ever I've seen the movie.
They've seen it in water, then we see them waiting, and then they realise, hang on, they can only sense this room temperature. So very similar to Predator and movement and body signature, heat signatures. And I like that idea of that, like just showing us something different. There's a couple of moments that I thought, at least they showed us something different with the face hugger.
Yes. Yeah, they did. They did. And I like that. I like that they're around as the threat. I did realize, though, and I don't mean this to sound like a negative, it's just something I noticed, but like the face huggers are around a lot. The xenomorphs aren't. There's not a lot of time spent with any xenomorphs in this movie at all. we'll get to the end later, but we have the beginning, which is all face huggers. We have the end, which is what it is, and then we have the middle, which is more face huggers, and then some aliens, which, and this is going to sound like a silly thing to say, but in every other alien film, the aliens, the xenomorphs, feel like they kind of have a personality.
Yeah.
Like the first one in Alien, the alien in Alien 3, even some of them in Aliens, when they're like testing the gun, or they're like, hunting them a bit, it felt like the xenomorph was an actual character. This one, they really felt like props. They're props, and I don't know if you noticed this, but both the facehuggers and the xenomorphs in the movies, they're kind of little bitches. Like, they die so easy. Like, people are swatting away facehuggers. No one was swatting away facehuggers in Aliens. And they're like, the xenomorphs, they get shot once and they're like, I'm dead now. Like, what the hell? When did these guys become soft?
It was a pulse rifle. No,
did you think that? Were you like, how are these guys getting killed so easily by this child?
I to be honest, I didn't think too much about that. I do agree with you that I felt like the facehuggers were like swatted away a bit too easily, or they didn't come back as quick.
I'm glad it's just me.
I do agree with you. Like, so when in Aliens, when Burke breaks open a couple of facehuggers to get Newt and Ripley, it did feel like they were relentless and bang, bang, bang. And if they don't get you the first time, they keep coming back and they'll keep coming back. Whereas I feel like there was supposed to be a whole bunch of them in the water and it was attacking them. They don't know what they are and they're swatting away. And then we do see, again, I think it's one of the first times we've seen it where we kind of see the impregnation, well, let's call it rod, going into his mouth. And he's
tube.
And he's trying to push it away. I don't think we've really seen that before.
Yeah, the facehugger dick.
Yeah, facehugger dick, that's right. I didn't want to say it. I didn't know how to say it. I feel like there's some cool stuff that they showed us there, but I did feel like, hang on a second, they're in water, they don't know what's happening, they know something's coming at them, they're like looking around, but it felt like there was an anticipation of, we saw all these face huggers and there's like rows and rows of like at least 100, and then we see some of them start plopping down into the water, but then it felt like there was maybe only one or two they were sort of fighting off until they got through the door, and then there's bang, 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 there's like 50 of them again. It's like, well, shouldn't they have been overwhelmed in there the first time? I don't know. That's, again, being a bit nitpicky, but I agree with you. I felt like, yeah, in retrospect, yeah, they probably were a little bit easily disposed of.
Yeah. I also would like, if someone at some stage, just across the Alien movies, could just give us a firm decision on what the gestation period is.
Oh! This is my pet peeve.
Once it's been chucked in, because these xenomorphs are growing to full size in like 10 minutes in this movie. Like, they just like, here's a full grown. I'm like, hang on, what? That's not how this goes. It takes some time, doesn't it? No, not anymore.
Yeah.
It's the same with, it's a problem across all the Alien movies. It just depends on the director. They're like, no, we just need an alien now.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely inconsistencies. I think Aliens luckily doesn't fall into that trap because we only have one chest burster in Aliens, and you can never know that one was probably, the facehugger could have only just fallen off recently. So there's that one. Obviously, Kane in the first movie, that sets the standard. I agree with you. That was the one thing, as soon as it happened with Navarro, I was like, that was the other cool thing. They froze the tail to release it, which was, again, a bit different. But then Navarro gets up, goes, and then starts having a bit of a cough. And I'm like, well, that's the quickest gestation I've ever seen in an Alien movie. And it's like, well, to me, that doesn't ring remotely true. And I don't know, again, if that's in the script stage, whether they need to have...
No.
It just... Look, take this what you will. The only personal explanation, logic I can sort of maybe apply to it, if I was maybe a director of these movies, will say, well, every human's a little bit different. Sometimes, like, if it goes into one person, it might be quicker than somebody else, whether due to their diet or their health or whatever. So there might be some slight variations, but it's like you said, like the movies have got quite over the shop. Like when you think about whether you want to go with the Rottweiler or the Oxen in Alien 3 gets impregnated after Ripley and gets hatched and is the threat for the movie then, but Ripley, has it for 40 hours, 72 hours, whatever, like there's massive inconsistencies as the movies go along. So, yeah, that's, I guess, my last nitpick that I can think of.
Yeah, so that bit was a bit like, what the hell? I got a few. The other set piece that's kind of big one is the anti-gravity one, which we touched on before, where they realize they're surrounded by aliens. This comes after one of the more confusing moments in the movie where the ex-boyfriend, who is kind of the leader, the last surviving one that's not Rain or Andy, they find pulse rifles and they decide they're going to have to fight back. And I thought quite interestingly, but then it didn't matter. Andy was like, we can't shoot them because they have acid blood and it'll melt through the floor, so you can't use these pulse rifles. Does nothing to stop them getting the pulse rifles, but also they shoot the shit out of everyone, and the acid, only some of the acid sometimes seems to burn through, the rest of it doesn't. I don't know. Anyway, what annoyed me was he gets the pulse rifle and he's like, yeah, do this, this, this. He obviously knows how to use it, has used it many times before. He seems to almost be an expert at a pulse rifle. And she's like, how did you know this? And he's like, I don't know, video games. Why not just say, I stole one and have been using it? Or why not just say, I signed up to the Colonial Marines, but I got booted out? Like, why have some stupid, awkward thing where he's like, video games? Like, that's obviously a lie. It's a lie. And it's distracting us from what's going on.
Yeah.
And I groaned a little because I was like, oh God, they're doing fucking Hicks and Ripley. Oh Christ. Like, this isn't Aliens. We don't need to do that. Little did I know that would be the least of my problems, but I'm jumping ahead. So they get into the corridor, they have the pulse rifle, they're cornered, and they Rain figures out zero gravity, shoot them, the acid won't burn through the floor. I think this idea, and then they shoot the shit out of him. We get all the acid blood floating around. Really cool, really spooky thing. The blood looks pretty CGI. The blood doesn't look very convincing, but I was like, whatever, I don't care. This is interesting. We'll get through this. I felt like this was a moment in the movie where if we had had another character or had not killed off the character so quickly, this would have been a really fucking cool and gruesome spot for a character to die.
Yeah.
Like for a character who survived this long to like turn at the wrong point or get spooked and then get a face full of acid blood and no one can do anything about it because it's all zero G and they're surrounded by acid and they just have to watch their friend die in this acid bath. I thought that would have been the first thing that popped into the writers' minds. But no, they get through it safe and sound and then they go up elevator shafts and down elevator shafts. Did you like the acid blood zero G?
Yeah, again, it was something different. Like, I did. Okay, I'd like to give credit to the YouTube channel I watched, but I watched a couple of videos. And I've honestly, off the top of my head, can't think of what video it was. But they sort of talked about this movie almost like coming up with some unique or new ways of seeing Alien, but really in essence, still they've gone, well, what was the winning formula for the other movies? Let's use all the greatest hits and a lot of those sort of beats from especially Aliens and Alien are used here again to, I think, good advantage to make the story work and look great and feel like an Alien film. But I did like the zero gravity. Apparently that came from a video game, someone was saying. I also heard that there might have been something similar in video game, but that video game was inspired. Yeah. But that video game was inspired by Alien, so it's kind of this weird cyclical,
There's a lot of stuff in the early stages because there was an idea early on that Rain was going to be Ripley's daughter. And that was kind of kicking around as the concept. And then they moved away from I think wisely moved away from that. I think we don't need to go back to Ripley. We can have other people in this universe. It's kind of the Skywalker problem that Star Wars has, where they just can't stop fucking going back to Skywalker in the movies. And so I think it's nice that they was like, no, man, we've already had 2 movies that had nothing to do with Ripley. We're done. We've moved on from that. So that was great.
But even then, like,
Hey,
think
but there's a
about
moment in this movie.
I was going to say, just think about
There
it
you go.
logically.
There you go.
Like, I mean, video game Alien Isolation uses Ripley's daughter, but let's hypothetically put Rain as Ripley's daughter. Doesn't it kind of retcon Aliens if you watch a director's cut and we see the daughter, got to the age of, I don't know, 58 or 67 or whatever and passed away? At some point, surely that would have sort of come up that she went looking for the mum, and alternatively, I had a feeling that Kaylee Spaney was going to live through this movie. You still don't know 100% that's going to happen.
Almost impossible for her not to.
Yeah, but you still the way movies are now. They like to have that final girl template, and sometimes you do get faked out, and they kill that person off at the last second. So the problem would have been if they had that as Ripley's daughter, then Ripley's daughter is going to survive. Again, unless they retconning it. So
yeah,
like you said, I don't think they need to go down that path.
No, in fact, I got a little bit excited at one point because I thought that maybe they were going to kill Rain and everyone, and the sole survivor was just going to be Andy. And I thought that would have been a super interesting way to go about it if the only of this is the android, and then he kind of goes off and does his thing, and it's like, oh, cool, that's fun. I also kind of would have liked that because, like I said, he was the only character I cared about. I didn't want him to get hurt. But so that after we have all this chaos going on with the aliens and the floating blood and the people dying, there is a moment in this film that made me audibly groan out loud in the cinema, along with a couple other people who were in there with me.
Is it a famous
I think you
line?
might know what it is. When they are in an elevator shaft, it's a famous line. And you know what? They got so close, got hold of Rain, and then Andy comes flying down with the pulse rifle down the elevator shaft, stomps on the alien, says, "Get away from her," and then shoots the alien, and then pauses and then stutters, you bitch. When he just said, "Get away from her," and stopped, I was like, beautiful, great. Nice little, it's not the line, but it's it's him protecting his person, and he's like, "Get away from her," with the pulsar. I'm like, okay, yeah, good, nice. When he said, "You bitch," I almost walked out of the cinema. That is one of the worst moments I've ever seen in a movie. It was atrociously bad. I do not understand how it got past a joke at 3 a.m. in the morning in the writer's room.
Yeah.
It was absurdly bad.
Yeah.
Absurdly, for multiple reasons. But let's just keep it on track with the Alien movies. That means that now, by canon, he said it first.
Yes.
So is this just the saying people say in Alien
clearly
now?
Clearly.
In Yutani land, are people just walking around saying, "Get away from her, you bitch"? What the? What? Why? Also, that's Ripley's line. This character. The reason I thought it was so bad is because it was badly done. Grown worthy fan service, so close to landing it and then shit the bed. This is in the face of the Ripley legacy, because basically saying is, we don't need her anymore at all. Nothing she has is worth anything. We're just doing our own thing. We're going to take everything. We're going to take her line. We're going to take her shoes. We're going to take her. We're taking all of it. We're going to give a shit. She's dead. Who cares? It was absurd. It was absurd that they did that. I really thought that I'd had a stroke. I was like, this can't actually. I know I'm getting worked out, but my God, that is one of the most famous film lines of the last 40 years.
Yeah. And I didn't need to say, I can almost understand it.
Gene Kelly singing in the rain.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I kind of, there's a part of me would understand it more if it was even before Ripley says it in Aliens, if it was set up that that's a saying or that's a terminology that people use frequently, but you could say any millions of things to say, get away from it, fuckwit, or like it just, or you motherfucker, like it just feels a bit, yeah. It's like they didn't need to go there and they went there, and it's like, really, really.
Like that's the only reason that Andy would know that line.
Yeah,
What the hell? Oh my! It just reeked of a lack of confidence in what they were doing and
yeah,
a lack of understanding of what they were doing. It just bad. Just one of the biggest blunders I've seen in a movie ever, and additionally bad because they got so close to sticking the landing. After all this, we get to what is our third act, really, which comes with a few surprises.
mm-hmm.
How did you feel about this? I guess, almost twist ending that they give us
Yeah.
on this movie.
I envisaged, I mean, having a history with Prometheus and Covenant, I knew as soon as she was going to inject herself, being pregnant as well, inject herself with this black ooze, I knew all hell would break loose and there would be some sort of birth, rapid birth, very similar to Dr. Shaw in Prometheus, where the trilobite is within her womb. Yeah, I wasn't sure what was going to pop out necessarily. I kind of felt like it would be somewhat humanoid, but maybe not as humanoid as it was. Yeah, and I still don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. Look, I mean, it makes sense in the logic they've set up, but I don't know how I feel about it.
Sure. I feel like we've seen this exact thing before, but better in Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
The Alien Resurrection, the monster at the end is a half human, half alien hybrid that looks scarier, looked cooler, I thought. Like the human skull alien head, I think is an incredibly fucking badass design. And also was like an actual kind of, again, again, it sounds weird, but like kind of character. Like Ripley clone in Resurrection feels motherly feelings towards this thing, and she knows that it's like a killing machine and it's dangerous, it has to be stopped. But she also, like, as she's killing it, she's crying. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And you see this thing kind of not understand, like you realize it's an animal, it doesn't understand, it's just doing its nature, and here its mother is killing it. This weird Prometheus looking giraffe thing
Yeah.
looked goofy as hell. It was so CG, it was goofy as hell. And it kept, like, I'm sure when they thought about it, the way that it grins, they're like, yeah, because the Xenomorphs, when they pull their lips back, it kind of looks like a grin, and that's creepy. This thing, when it grins, it looked like Squidward. Like, I was just like, what? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? How did it grow to be 12 feet tall in
Yes.
1 minute? Just madness. But I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. I've seen this before in an Alien movie. The Alien movie that is probably the most derided and dismissed Alien film of all of them. And yet somehow they did it better. I don't, what, I was, seriously, is this what we're doing? And you know what? I walked out of the cinema and I was like, I think we're out of ideas. I think the Alien movies are out of ideas. I think they've reached the maximum of what they can come up with this. Not to mention the fact that this movie, more than any other film, goes to great lengths to explain that, like, the xenomorph is the perfect species. It is a perfect entity. It's perfect in every way. And then the monster we get at the end of an Alien movie is not a xenomorph. It's not the scariest thing you can think of. It's a tall guy.
Yeah.
Like, you tell us in the movie, this monster is the scariest monster. And then at the end, you go, we're going to give you that scary monster. We chase her around for a bit. And then on top of that, the alien at the end of the movie, they blow out the goddamn airlock again. Again, Cable, again. We're doing this again. I want someone to send out a memo If you are banned from blowing the thing at the guy, come up with something else. Stop it. Stop it for
But
crying out loud.
you know what?
It's silly. It's silly and it's boring.
I did have this feeling, and I didn't know. It's like, I touched on Solo before, but I did feel I had a little bit of a feeling of this film, and then it was confirmed to me because someone else said it, and I heard it in either another podcast or YouTube video, and someone said it did feel a little bit like The Force Awakens in that, well, we're going to reboot this series, and we're kind of going to give you a lot of what you know. Just maybe a slight tweak on that, and it did feel like, we did get a retread of a lot of the best stuff that we saw in the movies, and then they've tried, like you said, tried to do something different, but it's still sort of the same. And I did have Resurrection vibes, and I agree with you. I think Resurrection did a lot better. Again, logically that made perfect sense for that film. But yeah, this one, I was kind of like, he kind of looks a little, he gave me engineer vibes. I mean, maybe that was
Massive engineer vibes.
Maybe that was, a little bit to do with his height, but he was very pale.
This is something I haven't said, but I should add on. I know the actors in this movie did a good job. I don't blame them for the fact that I don't think they have any character.
Yeah.
I think all the actors are good, and I liked all the actors in this movie, which is even harder because it's like you guys could have pulled off really good characters if you were given them. And it's not hard, like just to give us one scene where we actually feel them breathe and live and be real characters. And it didn't happen. So I liked the middle of this movie, I think is where I've come away from it. To answer the question you asked at the very beginning of this episode, I was really worried in the first 20 minutes. I was ready to just call it. Then I got on board and I was like, okay, sick. I love the ship. I love this like broken down research center kind of thing. I dug the idea that it's the ship, the action is happening quite close to a planet, looming threat that like, and at one point I thought they would even do it where like all the Xenomorphs would like get on the ship. They'd kill everyone except like Andy or something. Andy would know, he'd pilot the ship down, then he'd land, realize it's full Xenomorphs. The Xenomorphs get unleashed on the planet, and you just watch the Xenomorphs just go on a killing spree for a little bit because we've never seen that. We've seen the aftermath of LV-247 in Aliens, but we never watched like just a bunch of Xenomorphs being like party time and just fucking up everyone on that planet. That would have been real cool. That would have been a real cool way to end it. Honestly, like just they don't eat Andy because he's a cyborg or like a synthetic. Everyone else got killed up on the Romulus space station, and then the Xenomorphs take over, and he's just kind of there on what is about to become a dead planet ruled by Xenomorphs. Fucking sick ending. Would have loved that. Instead, they blow it out of the goddamn airlock. Oh, and also, it's like almost a little bit of the Raiders of the Lost Ark thing. If these characters had never gone to Romulus, everything would have taken care of itself.
Correct.
Because the Romulus space station is crashing into that asteroid belt with or without them. They speed it up. But if they just didn't go there, the problem resolves itself and everyone lives.
Yeah.
So it is that kind of thing where it's like, ooh, whoops.
Yeah.
You know what I'm excited for? I'm genuinely excited for. I'm excited for this movie to inevitably show up on Disney Plus in like a week, so I can watch it again and know what I'm getting and be able to relax into what it is. And I'm honestly probably going to enjoy it more the second time.
So do you think it'll be on Disney relatively soon? Or they have already advertised it?
I mean, everything that Disney puts in cinemas these days is up on Disney Plus faster than any other streaming service.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it is going to be up on Disney Plus. Really, I mean, a week is a bit of a stretch, but yeah, we're getting it real quick.
Well, I feel like, has it made a lot of money? I feel like it has. But also,
it's doing good. It's actually the second most profitable Alien film ever. In fact, I had a look at that earlier because I knew we would want to talk about that. It is So it's currently sitting at $41.5 million at the box office, which is second only to Prometheus, which for an opening weekend.
Yeah.
You won. This is crazy to me, actually. I'll read the list. So number 1, Prometheus 51. Number 2, Romulus 41. Alien versus Predator 38.3. That's third. Alien Covenant 36.2. Alien 3 19.4. Alien Resurrection 16.5. Aliens 10. Alien versus Predator Requiem 10. Alien $3.5 million. And I think that tells us we're getting alien movies forever. They're never stopping making these.
Well,
like if every movie is making that much money and going up.
And you know what's crazy? Like I shared a photo with you guys in the last couple of days with all the cinema chains in America, like how much merch they've brought out. It is crazy because I think when they know there's a want for a movie, especially when it's a sequel, especially like it kind of happened with Scream 5. When they came back, they did something small. One of the cinema chains had something, but when it came to Scream 6, there was heaps of merch. All the different major companies in America had different ranges of merch to the point where a lot of that stuff sold out before the movie had even come out, and then people were trying to scalp it on eBay and stuff like that. But all three big movie cinema chains in the States have had different options, like obviously the Pepsi or the Coke cups of different variations. There's had the popcorn bucket, which is the tube with the face hugger on the side of it. There's the full Xenomorph head, and there's just so many options. And you go, wow, I didn't know there was that much love for aliens still, that they would risk even making a lot of that stuff, to be honest. But it's out there, and like you said,
I mean, it's a beloved franchise.
It is, but I still think it's maybe a little bit niche for all three to do something. I think that's unusual. Normally it'll be one chain that'll do something, but sort of to your point about streaming, what's interesting that I'd heard was originally this was going to be a Hulu kind of straight to streaming film at one point, until they go, oh no, hang on, we can release this in theatres. Like very similar to Prey, which was the other Predator spin-off movie that was straight to...
I think that was the thinking. They thought maybe this was going to be the future of the Predator Alien movies, was they would just make their own in-house stuff and then release them, and I don't know where they got confidence. Currently, as of today, it is the third highest rated Alien film on Rotten Tomatoes. It's sitting at 87%, behind Alien and Aliens, which are tied at 94. So it's beloved. I mean, I have lots of problems. Obviously, I am aware that I get caught up on stuff that probably no one else cares about, but it's beloved by audiences. They're showing up in droves to buy it. Like you said, the marketing, the merchandise. You know, I've seen heaps and heaps of advertising for not just cinema chains, but other people like Alien Romulus t-shirts, hats. Like it's people are jumping on the bandwagon, and it's kind of coming off the back of this. It's the American summer, so I'll call it the summer movie trend, where, and we've talked about it here on the show, Twisters into Deadpool versus Wolverine, and now into Alien Romulus. It's like they're all knocking each other. You know, Alien Romulus has knocked Deadpool and Wolverine off the #1 spot. That has been out a few weeks now, but still impressive. You know, these huge tentpole action movies are coming into the cinemas and giving us kind of like 1998 vibes. You know, we're showing up for giant tornadoes, and we're showing up for two guys in skin tight suits punching each other and shooting each other. We're showing up for alien movies. I think we'll be getting an announcement of another alien movie within a year. The only reason I think we're not getting it sooner is because the next thing we're getting is a Disney Plus original series called Alien Earth, which has been in development for a long time, and is reportedly, I think that the trailer drops today, so maybe even by the time we're recording, the trailer will be out. It's reportedly set on Earth, which is why it's called Alien Earth, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before Prometheus, which means no Xenomorphs. So the next thing we're getting from the Alien, I guess, franchise is an Alien TV show with no aliens. Now, that makes me a little nervous for Australian films because if you're going to TV show that might maybe we don't get another Alien movie. But it's a little bit. I think Alien is becoming a big boy in the IP market.
Yeah. I do worry if the show's not about the Xenomorph and Weyland-Yutani. I don't know if that works as well. Like, I understand in your environment, but unless you're talking about more the engineers and engineers being on Earth and helping set up civilization, that's one thing. But that could be still
Well, I
interesting.
think it's the early days of Weyland-Yutani,
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
which just kind of sounds like
So how they-
Succession, but with
Okay.
Weyland-Yutani
Oh, okay. So
instead.
okay, gotcha. Not 100. I don't know why. My brain just went hundreds of years before Prometheus. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, right. Well, I guess 100 Years was the main action, not the pre-credit stuff. That is, yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. It could be interesting. Absolutely. But yeah. I mean, overall, this is going to sound weird, but even compared to Deadpool and Wolverine, which I did enjoy, and we both talked about, like you said, it was like we had our fun for 2 hours, we enjoyed it, but it was still still like an empty feeling, not fully fulfilled feeling when we left the cinema. This was a movie, I wouldn't even say necessarily was fulfilled, but it was one of the movies I was like, oh, I could go back and watch that tomorrow to pick up on the little bits that I maybe didn't pick up on.
Like I said,
Whereas Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm like, no, I can wait for it to come to streaming. I'll wait till Blu-ray. I don't need to rush out. I know people have seen it 2 or 3 times. I enjoyed it, but I'm not rushing out. My time is more sensitive these days, so I don't have time to do that sort of stuff all the time. But it was like, before I record this, do I go again? It was very closely. It was a fine line. It was almost happening.
Yeah, look, I think I would, if I had the time, I would have seen it again for sure. I feel like I will enjoy it more with repeated viewings. I did, as soon as I watched it, like I went home and watched Alien Resurrection that night. It actually made me like Alien Resurrection more. I think Alien Resurrection is a better movie now. I still think it is the weirdest Alien movie. It doesn't feel like an Alien movie. It feels like a weird comedy at times, but I think it's pretty freaking cool after watching Alien Romulus. So I guess if it inspires people to like talk about it like we are, or go and see it, or go and revisit the previous stuff and create that interest, yeah, I'm happy if they bring out an Alien movie every couple of years and it's, got really cool horror kind of stuff. And I mean, this one is definitely more in the horror category than the action category, which is a nice thing to get back to. I certainly missed that in Alien movies of late. And if we can refine, if we can, every couple of years get a new horror director who's like, I got some great ideas. I'm like, cool, like have at it. See what Xenomorphs can do. Why not? Let's do it. Let's roll.
I do feel like it's a movie that sort of also it feels like Alien's back in form, if that makes sense. Like, and it's nothing against Prometheus and Covenant.
Yes.
I still Prometheus, yes. Covenant, I'll admit, I reckon I've seen it once or twice, and I don't hate it. There's a lot more going on there. Like I said, it's a lot more heavy in its thoughts, and it's not just a straight out horror film. There's all this deeper meaning and religious type connotations to a lot of the stuff and the creation of life and all that. I get that, but I do feel like now that those 2 films, like I feel like it is missing that last bit to sort of tie it all up. But I do feel like this, and so the point of, I guess, Prometheus and Covenant, they were those movies, like you were saying, like you weren't really in confined spaces too much. You were in sort of these open areas. Yeah, sometimes you're in a spaceship or whatever, but generally you're out in the open. You're not it's not claustrophobic, or is this one going, no, we're going back to that. We're going to be on a ship and you're going to be claustrophobic and there's going to be rooms and there's doors and lifts and stuff like that. And yeah, I kind of liked it. Just, again, it's like what works for the Alien franchise, yeah, let's go back to a ship. I think that was a good way to reinvent or at least reboot the franchise. Now it'd be interesting to see what they can do to be a bit more unique and a bit more, bring something new to the table instead of rehashing the same stuff all the time. Or like you said, giving us that horror element, giving us edge of their seat stuff. And like you said, like I think the core problem, unfortunately for these films, which they never really nailed since Aliens, is caring enough about the characters that when they die, it actually means something. And look, it happens in our favourite franchise like Scream as well. Like, I mean, if you're not invested in the characters enough, it means jack shit when they die. So, how they do that, I don't know. I'd like to think you and me could write a good script that could get it over the line and make it work, but you've got to make the characters likeable enough that...
Where does this sit? Where does this sit in the Alien movies for you? Yeah, like where would you have it? I've currently got it sitting... like I'm umming about whether it sits just above or just below Resurrection for me, but it's like Aliens, Alien 3 are like locked in as the top 3 for me, and then it's either Resurrection or Romulus is probably next. Where does it sit for you?
Well, I probably, because we haven't talked about 3 yet, and even some of the other sequels, I don't know if I really want to. Do I want to tip my hat too much in that regard? Look, it's still. I think this needs another rewatch anyway, and I think we'll go from there. I think it's a very good. I'll give you this. It's a very good companion to the first 2 films. That it slides in there nice and snug. It doesn't ruin anything that's set up in the first movie, unless you want to argue the point about how they retrieve said alien from deep space. It doesn't ruin or retcon anything for Aliens necessarily, apart from get away from you, bitch, which is again like you said, it's the dumbest thing they've ever done in one of these films, I think. But I think it fits snugly, but also is one of those movies you could watch it as a standalone. I've heard arguments from people like, oh, you can watch this as a standalone because it doesn't necessarily, you don't need things either side, but it's kind of like, well, watching Alien Romulus, I feel like you benefit from seeing Alien and Aliens anyway.
Of course.
But having said that, it doesn't affect anything in the scheme of things. So if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. It doesn't have to be part of your marathon when you sit down to watch Alien films, or vice versa. It can easily sit snugly in between both, and you can still enjoy it and watch those 3 in a row.
You know what I think it might be good as? Like if you are, when this comes to streaming or physical media, if someone is going to sit down and do like a bit of an Aliens marathon and you're watching it chronologically, so instead of watching this last, you watch it second, it could work as almost like a nice little palate cleanser. Like you watch Alien, which is just a masterpiece, and then you chuck on Alien Romulus, which is a bit of a romp, and you don't really have to think, and you just kind of check it out. And you're like, oh yeah, there's Alien dead. But by the end of it, you're like, geez, you know what I missed? Is like quality characters and Ripley and storytelling that is top notch. And then you pop on Alien. I think if you were going to watch Alien Romulus, and then Aliens would automatically seem like 20% better than it ever had before in your life. Because you're like, oh my God, I am appreciating things I never appreciated before. And I think it would really up it in your estimation. So it could be a nice little amuse-bouche before Aliens the next time we're going to go do a little marathon somewhere.
Yeah. So I guess as we start winding up, like, I mean, you talked about David Johnson, who plays Andy. I thought was fantastic. I'm glad you thought he was fantastic. I thought he bought again, this is the thing it's not unique to the Alien franchise in that it has synthetics. But I think it was quite original, like you were talking about before, that I think he's an older model. He doesn't get all the updates. It's very similar to, again, it's very current in that we live in a world where we buy technology and we have to get updates occasionally for things to keep working. And then it gets to a point they go, yeah, you're going to have to buy a new one because we're not doing updates for that old model. And so I got it, and he needs repairs and he's starting to glitch a bit. So I liked his acting to feel like he was still human enough, but android enough too, that he has those glitches where he's kind of struggling a bit. I loved that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain it because I loved her in Civil War as well, but Kaylee Spaney, there's something about her, just like seeing her on screen. I think she's one of my new favourites.
I mean, she's having a great year. She's Priscilla with Sophia Coppola, and then, Civil War with Alex Garland, and now she's the lead in a very, very, very successful franchise film that is only going to grow in estimation. So go, Kaylee Spaney. Go get yours. You're sweet, man. Do it. A good one to revisit, I think.
Yeah.
And down the line, I'm interested to see how I feel about this movie this time next year once I've had a chance to watch it a few more times. Sick. Look, I can't think of anything else to say about this movie. It irked me and intrigued me almost in equal measure. So it's an interesting one. I'm not sold, but I'm also not totally writing it off. So
No, me neither.
I
like I said, I walked out, didn't love everything, but didn't hate everything either. I enjoyed going back. I feel like to that universe of, like I said, in between Alien and Aliens, I felt like I was there, or I felt like that did feel like that world. It didn't feel like a completely separate, a bit like seeing maybe even the Star Wars prequels, like feeling like you're kind of in the Star Wars universe, but in a different universe because there's so much like CGI or, green screen. I felt like, again, they had like that grittiness, like you said, the real sets and almost like it's funny the way you said that earlier, and it reminds me of something James Cameron had said when he saw Alien the first time, and what the thing he loved about Alien was there was something about that film, like it was almost like it felt like you could sort of touch and feel the textures of that world, like even the scene where Harry Dean Stanton gets killed and he's looking up and there's the water dripping down and the chains and all that, like that vibe of feeling like you're there. I felt like they replicated that really well in this film too. I felt like, there's some nitpicks we've got, I guess, but I still felt overall, I felt like I was in that world. That time and place in space with Weyland-Yutani run corporation world, I felt like I was there.
Yeah, and it's nice. It's nice to be back in Ridley Scott's world and a little bit James Cameron's world. It was good fun. It was fun. It was a fun time.
So I guess not all sequels suck then, right?
Not all sequels suck, question mark?
Or it was the line, stay away from your bitch or get away from your bitch. This is film class, right? Actually, that would have been the funny way. If they had said stay away from you, bitch. That would have been the line.
I mean, you know what would be good? If they had said anything other than the exact line, that would have been good. Literally anything.
100%.
Well, if you had said float away from her, you bitch, that would have been fine.
Yeah. I just think maybe not even use bitch. It felt weird from him.
It was so weird and forced. Oh, man.
Like, it would have been funnier. It would have kind of been funnier for his character if it was a bit more of a dad joke sort of thing to say. Like, he said something that was very dad. Anyway, that's a whole other argument. That's for another day, I guess. But on that note, yes, not all sequels suck.
It honestly would have been. It would have been better if he had been like, "Why did the Xenomorph cross the road?"
Exactly. To see his flatmate. Yeah. So I guess on that note, not all sequels suck. And everyone go see Alien Romulus. Make your own decisions.